I mean, I've been told my voice is pretty unique, and growing up, people would always think that I was sick or smoked. To me, as like an insecure woman growing up or girl growing up, I took that as, oh, you don't have a good voice. So it's like, how am I going to sing these songs? I'm not a singer. And then that sort of became my superpower. So I'm like, yeah, it is unique.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Release Day Series podcast. I'm your host, Alex Heward. It is good to be back, which I feel like is how I start every episode now. I know, I'm sorry for the long gaps between episodes. I can only do it when I find the time, but I gotta say, it's so awesome to take the time away and then come back and feel completely refreshed to talk to an artist, especially an artist that joins me today, Cinzia of Cinzia and the Eclipse. It is just so like, it's like you go away and then you're like, oh man, I gotta do the podcast, and then I'm like, and then I get the artist in front of me, we start talking, I'm like, yes, this is why I do it. It's so awesome. And Cinzia is such a great person to talk to about music, about doing things independently, about building her self-confidence and just ways for artists to build their self-confidence as well. And that is really a big part of our conversation today, and setting goals as well. She has set some awesome goals. She's achieved some amazing goals, and we talk all about that. We talk also about her latest single, Back to Being Friends. And Cinzia just has a knack as a singer and a songwriter for writing music and songs that really connect, really hit you emotionally. That really is something that you can be like, yeah, like I feel this in this song, and that's why I think she has such a great following. So many people really can relate to her and really feel her music, and that's what draws me to her. It's just absolutely incredible what she's done with her and her producer Luca. It's just incredible stuff, the music that they're making. So I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation. Some great takeaways in this chat. Remember, you can find all of our podcast episodes, including our limited video series, on releasedayseries.com. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter that you will receive with the release of every new episode, so you do not miss a show. Broadcasting from the traditional territory of the Williams Treaties First Nations, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, Wendat, Inuit, and Métis peoples, this is my conversation with Cinzia of Cinzia and the Eclipse. Cinzia, it's release day for you. It is Friday, September 22nd.
Yeah.
And today you have released a brand new single, Back to Being Friends. Congratulations. Happy release day.
Thank you. Happy release day. I feel like I have to say it back. Like, I feel like I'm that kid being told happy birthday, and I'm like, and to you too.
And you too. That's right. Yeah. Enjoy your dinner. You too. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. You put a ton of work into everything that you do, based on what I see, following you on social media, your album artwork, everything that goes into it. So when you get to today, it must be, I mean, I feel like that sometimes it's also when the real work starts, but there must be a little bit of a like, all right, everything can almost start now.
Yeah, I feel like on release day, there's definitely like a breath of fresh air and like a sigh of relief of like, okay, it's out. And that stays for about, I'd say, like a good couple of hours. And then you're like, okay, now more work. Now let's push it. Now let's talk to people. Let's see how people are feeling. But I very much prefer this work, the post work, because it's interacting with people. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it.
You're pushing people to something too, right? I mean, it's like you have to have some pre-release promotion, but it must feel better to be like, and I know there's pre-saves, but it must feel better to be like, okay, now you can go listen to it. You've heard snippets, you've heard this, you've heard that. Okay, your previous release that just came out.
Just for fun.
Okay. Like, again, killer hook. I remember hearing Just for Fun.
Thank you.
And I was like, I got to hear the rest of this song. And I'm pretty sure there's even like a clip of you getting a voice note from a friend saying like, I just have this part in my head. Now it's out. People can go listen to it. I mean, that's just got to be so much also nicer to be like, yes, you can go listen to it.
Yeah, of course. Especially when people are like, "Oh, this part is in my head," and that sort of happened with Back to Being Friends too. The chorus is like pretty hooky in my opinion, but I'm definitely biased. Um, but
It
it
is.
feels.
I will validate. Let me validate.
Thank
It
you.
is.
Thank you. And it's always like, I mean, I have deep imposter syndrome and so does everyone else. And it's sort of just learning how to work with it. So when people are like, oh, I have this part in my head, I can't wait for it to be out. It's like, amazing. I hope you like the rest of it. And then they do. And you're like,
Yeah.
yes. So it's not just like one part. The whole song is great. And it's like you said, it's like being able to say, oh, and now you can listen to it feels so much better because like teasing is exactly that. It's teasing and it's a tease to me too because I'm like, I want you to hear the whole thing too. So it feels good, you know, and we've been playing it live for a little while. So for people to go back home and be like, I want to listen to this when I get home, and now I could be like, you can.
You can.
So
There it is. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like that's also half the battle too, right? Like road testing it, seeing what that reception is. Have you done a song? Is there a song that you've done that like you haven't recorded because you haven't felt like maybe it's got the reception you wanted? Does that play into any of you going in and recording anything?
um, I think I'm gonna say no because I'll usually
Nice.
like I try and keep like I'm very open with my listeners and stuff. Like on Instagram, I'll always post like snippets of songs that are literally just started because I like getting that engagement. And you know, I've always said it's such a give and take relationship, and it's completely impossible for me to do this without you or without listeners. Like it's such a music is such a collaborative effort that I think it's important to take the audience into consideration. Um, that being said, it affects what I want to share, but it doesn't necessarily affect what I write and what I bring to the studio because that's still very personal. So when I go and record, when I bring something to the studio, it's because I'm really personally drawn to it. And no matter what the influence is. And it's so funny because Back to Being Friends was going to be one of those songs that wasn't going to be released because it was really just a vulnerable and personal moment in the studio with my like founding partner of Cinzia and the Eclipse, Luca, the producer. And it was really just a moment for me to get something off my chest. And it genuinely wasn't going to be released until I teased it a little bit. And people were like, I love it. And I'm like, okay, I think I
Yeah.
need to be vulnerable.
Yes, we've gotta do this. We've got to get this out there. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about it. Tell me about it. You sent a press release. Let me just read it real quickly here. The
Mm-hmm.
song tells the story of losing someone, and though we'd prefer being angry and it may be easier to hate them, we still have nothing but love for them. Talk to me about this. Let's unpack this because you will pack you. There's a lot in a lot of your music that I think you really connect though. Like your
Thank you.
listeners, a lot of people
Oh,
you see them commenting, like you see that there is a connection there. So clearly you're writing music that is deeply personal but also very relatable at the
thank
same
you.
time.
Jeez, I think that's like the balance that we want to find as songwriters, right? Is being personal and being able to connect with people still, because I think we all constantly feel these deep emotions and like, you know, my partner and I were just talking and complaining about how we feel everything and how it's such a burden. But it's also so great because we're able to like experience life at this crazy level and express it and share it with maybe some people who aren't able to. You know, I know I've been in that position where I'll listen to a song and be like, oh my God, this is everything I haven't been able to express. And it feels great. And that connection is incredible. And yeah, Back to Being Friends was exactly that. It's, you know, this is gonna sound so cocky, but I've never been dumped until this. And I was
Okay,
like, and like it was really unhealthy. I would just run from relationships the second they would get serious. I'd be like,
got it.
I might get hurt. I'm gonna run. And
Got it.
that was,
Okay.
you know, form of protection, but we've been through therapy. We understand not to do
Okay.
that now.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I met someone who I like really opened up with and was, you know, truly afraid to lose and afraid to run away from. And we were friends first, hence the title of the song. And when that ended, it wasn't like I hate you and I never want to see you again. It was like, fuck, I just lost a really good friend. And that sucks. And like we genuinely needed to take a few months apart. And he was playing a show in Montreal. And I didn't go because we weren't talking at that time. And I sort of kept myself busy that whole night. And it was weird because I didn't feel like, oh, I can't go see my partner. Like, I'm so sad because I'm not with this person anymore. I was so heartbroken because I couldn't go see a friend's show. Like, I couldn't go cheer on a friend because my heart was in the way. And, you know, that being said, I think dating a friend is by far one of the best relationships you can have. But if that ends, there is so many emotions on so many levels to deal with. And after that night, I sort of made a decision of like, no, I'm choosing to let my romantic feelings sort of get in the way. And it's okay if that's not reciprocated. It's just like something that I needed to like move past from. And I wrote back to being friends because it wasn't like, I hate you and we should be together, because the truth is we shouldn't have been. It was good while it was. But it was just like, hey, can we be friends again? Like, can we move past this awkward bit where it's like, oh, I used to see you naked, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You talk about the emotional, obviously the emotional impacts that something like that has, and it's it's an experiment as well. You're trying to be the relationship with the friend, but I feel like you're really great as well at emoting how you feel through your singing, and really got that in Back to Being Friends. So I'm curious as to like, and even with Just for Fun, like there's just like it's playful, but obviously it's emotional at the same time. And I'm wondering, like, where do you go when you get in front of the microphone in a studio? Because the studio must be the most sterile place to really let yourself out, unless of course you feel super comfortable, or if it's your closet where you spent nights crying. So where do you go, like, to get to that point? Because I feel like that's also something that people really connect with, is it's like, this doesn't seem put on. This is like she's gone somewhere.
Oh yeah, thank you. I very much appreciate that, because that's hard to emulate. I think it's either really hard or really easy, and it's not something you can fake. And like, let's say a song like Back to Being Friends, I remember crying in the studio, and I used to not be a crier because again, I would run from emotions unless it was in songs. But I remember when we were recording the pre-chorus that was like, that goes, you were the one who said you were attached, called me your girlfriend before we even had sex. That was like, that's a genuine moment that happened in real life, like we had that moment where he looked at me and was like, oh, I'm attached, like weird, this is it, and I remember replaying that so much in the studio in my head, to the point of making myself cry, because it's like, how, and I totally understand emotions change with time, and that's why I think you can never hold someone accountable for falling out of love or something, because at least they're being honest. But there was just like, how could you have looked at me so honestly and say that, and then just like rip it apart? And that was really, that moment was the emotion that I tried to carry in the whole song, and trying, like, having this internal battle of like, how do I take that for what it was, for the moment that it was, and let go and move on without animosity? And that's where a lot of the emotion for Back to Being Friends comes with that. But I tend to like emotionally torture myself in the studio, to be honest, just to get there, because these are all little moments that are relived through music. And like a song like Just for Fun, I just wanted to have fun with it. I was like dancing around in the studio, and I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky to work with Luca, because we've known each other since high school. So there's a bond there that can't be broken.
Yeah. And just for fun, that was a co-write, right? Like that was written with another artist as well.
Yeah, that was written with Liliane DiFrancesco, and that was actually going to be released on her album, and for some reason it didn't. And we just didn't want it to get lost or buried in a catalog. So I took
Nice. So
it.
you took it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great. You kind of have that sort of network or a bit of community, friends there to be like, you got a song or you don't, or, what do you have? Like, does that kind of happen frequently, or is that sort of a one-off?
It happens more frequently now because
Yeah.
I've been talking a lot about getting back to my roots as an artist and why I got into music. And the truth is, I started music to be a songwriter.
Yeah.
I didn't start with the intention to be an artist, truly. I just didn't have any credit as a writer.
Mm.
So I was like, all right, well, who's going to give me credit? Me. So I'll release
Okay.
my stuff so
Right.
people can hear it and, see how people connect with it. And as a writer, that sort of brought me into different rooms. And I started writing with a few other artists and stuff, which feels incredible because that's a whole other level, of like collaboration and vulnerability. Like it'll never not impress me how deep and close and vulnerable you can get with a person in a songwriting room in the first like half hour, in the first 20 minutes, just because there's that instant connect of like, oh, we both know that emotion. So yeah, I would say
I don't know. I can't relate because I'm not, but that sounds phenomenal. Like, that sounds like exactly the kind of environment you need to be in to grow really as a songwriter.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the most important things as an artist, as a songwriter, as a person is just growth and be
Yeah.
ever changing. And the only way that happens is being in a room with different people. And most of the time, people who are better than you.
Hmm. Oh yeah, got to be okay with that ego at the door, right? I mean,
100%.
that's I feel like can be tough for a lot of artists. The
Mm,
ego is a big part of being an artist. I think you need to have some in some capacity, but you also need to know when to check it and to understand that the person across from you is somebody to learn from and
yeah.
not to just uh, do better than.
Hmm. Yeah. But do better with.
So you started out with the intention to be a songwriter. Was it always like career wise even, or was it just like, I just want to write music? Like, it sounded like maybe you had this business sense that you wanted to get into it and to make money, which it can be tough for some artists to hear. Is like, oh, it's my art. I don't do it to make money. But is that kind of the thought that you had? Is that you wanted to kind of get into writing as a publisher?
Um, I think I didn't have the confidence to be on stage. I didn't
Hmm.
have that. I was extremely insecure and I still am in some ways, but it's like a lifelong journey of dealing with it. But I don't think I had the confidence to be on stage, but I knew I had good songs and not in like in a cocky sense, but just in like, I want these to be heard because I feel like someone can benefit from this. So I studied music business after college and was convinced that I would be like a booking agent or a manager or something like that. I really let go of the creative side because I didn't sort of realize that songwriting was a job then or a possibility. And I stopped writing for a little while. Uh, you know, Started working with promoters and bookers, and then just sort of realized like I'm not getting that creative output that I need in doing this. I love being involved in the scene, but it's not what I want. So yeah, I started writing more and more. And you would think it would be more of like a money thing because there is money in writing, but it was really just I wanted to be heard. I mean, I've been told my voice is pretty unique, and growing up, people would always think that I was sick or smoked. To me, as like an insecure woman growing up or girl growing up, I took that as, oh, you don't have a good voice. So it's like, how am I going to sing these songs? I'm not a singer. And then that sort of became my superpower. So I'm like, yeah, it is unique.
How'd you get over that? What did you do to get over? Are you over that? Like, what was it
um,
that gave you that confidence to get beyond that?
you know what? I hate that this was it, but it was outside validation. Um, it was
Yeah,
really
that's fair.
people, yeah, like Luca's the one who brought me into the studio, and he was just starting as a producer. He was like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm working out of this studio. I really just need like some vocals to record, get some practice done. I just started, which is hilarious because now he's like working with like Quebec celebrities that are huge. And it's
Okay,
it's funny because the come up is hilarious that I
that's
was
awesome.
like the sort of tester for when he
Right, the
started.
guinea pig, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which like, and he was still talented back then. He just grew a lot, and
Right.
now
Yeah.
he's like working with the best of the best in the country. And I'm like, okay, that's that. Like that feels good, you know. But yeah, he brought me in, and I was like, I don't really do that anymore. But like, okay, let's do it. So when we started working together, and then people in the studio would start hearing the songs, and they're like, oh, this is really good. That sort of triggered something in my brain of like, okay, maybe I am good. Maybe I could do this. And then started posting snippets on socials, and people liked it. So uh, there was definitely that like outer validation that came in that sort of kicked it off. Um, and then it was just a lot of practice and writing and working that muscle and just, you know, gassing yourself up a little bit of like, yeah, you could do this. Or like, if you, I have this idea of songwriting that you need to write a little bit every day or as often as you can to get the bad ideas out so the good ones can sort of come in and you can filter them. So it's really just exercising that muscle. And it's not like practice makes perfect. It's like, no, practice makes you better and
Yeah.
just builds that sort of that bank that you want to make of like good quality things and brings out that confidence in what you're doing because you can differentiate what wasn't great and what is great and what was like just the gunk that you needed to like filter in the gutters to let like the clear water pass through.
Perfect should never be the end. It should never be I'm striving to be perfect, right?
Perfect sounds boring.
Does sound boring. It sounds like it's, you know, it sounds like never messing up, right? It's like you don't learn from winning, you learn from losing, right?
Yeah.
It's like setting your goal, right? It's, oh, I want to be the best. What is it? There's the airline that's like, we want to be the best airlines. Okay. Well, what does that mean? And for how long? Right? What did put it into perspective? What do you want to be? You want to be the best songwriter in what way and how, in connecting, you know, but really defining goals. And I'm mentioning goals because I'm sort of leading the conversation here a little bit because I feel like you are a goals oriented person, because I just want to bring up something. You answered a question in an interview almost a year ago, I think, and you talked about a dream venue that you wanted to play, and that was the M. Tellis Theater in Montreal, right? Yeah. And then I think less than a year after that interview, you ended up opening for Jonathan Waugh, who's obviously an incredible artist. Like that had, like, you gotta put that somewhere and be like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, and you just obviously just your continued success as well. But talk to me about like either setting that goal or setting goals for yourself. Is that part of your process?
It has to be. It didn't begin intentional. It was very like, well, this is where I want to be. And then I realized I was sort of like spinning my wheels without going anywhere. And then I realized like, oh, goals are a thing. Maybe, yeah, maybe. And like, I need a driver. I need to know, not so much where I'm headed, but like, what am I trying to do here? What am I trying to accomplish? And like, when I first started making music, the goal was, well, I want to be heard. And then that turned into, well, I want to connect with people. And that turned into, well, I want to be a voice for people who can't express this, you know, and that was how I'm going to make that connection. And it really is sort of writing that first goal down. And then, okay, well, how do you get to that? Well, how do you get to that? Well, how do you get to that? And, you know, M. Tellis, better known as Metropolis, was, you know, a venue that I would always go to in Montreal, and I still go to for shows. And I think I love when artists will do like 3 shows at M. Tellis when they know they can sell out the Bell Center, but they're like, no, I'm going to do M. Tellis because it's awesome. Smaller. Yeah, I love that. I love that. The connection is right there. And that's like one of the reasons why it's my favorite venue. And, you know, opening for Jonathan was such a collaborative team effort that when that happened, I genuinely had to sit back and be like, this is what community is. This is reaching a goal with the people that you love. Because, back to what you were saying about goals, I would like look at Evenco, who are the top promoters in Quebec. I would look at their calendar and be like, well, who needs an opener? What shows do they have that an opener isn't like registered already? And I would reach out with like my whole kit being like, hey, I want to open for this show, you know?
Yeah.
And I did that. And I told Luca, my producer, again, Luca, the producer, saying, hey, I want to open up for Jonathan. I think his music is meaningful. There's a connection there. I think there's like, I almost want to say like a friendship that could be built there. I connect with the music, you know? So it's someone that I would want to work with. And Luca was like, oh, I know his drummer. Let me see what happens. So then Luca reached out to the drummer, and who's also a friend. And I didn't realize that was his drummer. And he was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And he reached out to the manager saying, hey, do we need it? And this is what I like push so hard to indie artists. Like, you have to be willing to make your own opportunities, because they weren't going to have an opener on those shows. And we sort of had to plant that seed of like, hey, we want to open. And they were like, oh, okay, then yeah, let's do it. And my manager at the time was friends with his manager. So it was so like, this deep.
It's a connection. It's a connectiveness. Yeah.
Exactly. And just that like level of like, everyone just wants to work with everyone. And those connections are so like deep seated connections. And then when we opened for him, Metropolis in January, being backstage, there was like a bunch of members of his band that I knew as well. So it was just a very like, oh, you're here, I'm here, you're here. Oh my God, I didn't know you were going to be here. And it was great. And that is one band that I have never seen so much love in people who like work together. It's like, they truly seem like a family. It's incredible.
That's awesome. I want to kind of like, I'm gonna like demystify that a little bit, because I think when people hear that, it's like, oh well, of course you knew them, so it made it, so of course they're gonna get you on. Okay, but how did you meet them? Like, what was your path to like knowing these musicians?
I totally get what you're saying, because I think that way too sometimes when, you know, when there's like quote unquote overnight successes, and you're like, well, it wasn't really a success. It was, you know, you knew this person, this person, this person, but that's only because you are present in the scene and like, you know, want to, there's something about being genuine and authentic and meeting people just to meet them because you connect on a musical level or on a personal level, and not because you're trying to get something from each other. Like I knew his backup singers, Rafael and Mel Pacifico, who are both incredible artists on their own as well. And I met Mel because we were in the same studio once, and we're just, you know, very fond of each other's voices. And it was really just genuinely meeting someone when you're out and about and present. And I can say that that's super important, because I had no connections in music before I made my own. Like I grew up in like East End Montreal, where music didn't really seem like a job or something that could be real. Until I pursued it and put myself out there. And when I think about that, about how like I had no connection to music at all. It's really, I went out and met people on my own, or like sent emails, or was really annoying and asked too many questions.
Yeah. That's how they know you're dedicated. That's my take. If like, that's how they know that, you know, like, I think there is a fine line of being maybe annoying, but there's also being present, like you mentioned. There's also being really good at what you do. And there is a little bit of give and take. And I think you know, you said this in a really great social media post for the artists the other day. It was like, look, you've got to be consistent, but there's also got to be a little bit of something that, you know, you can provide somebody as well. There is, you know, there's being friends, right? And then there's being partners in a way. And, you know, when you're going out and you're trying to get discovered or heard in the music industry, like, we all know how much noise is out there, right? So when you are saying, like, you know, it's one thing to be pushed to be like, hey, can I do this? Hey, can I do that? Hey, can I do that? It's another thing to say that when you're following up with, hey, just released a new single. Hey, playing a show here. Hey, doing this. Hey, doing that. Like, you're out doing, you're not sitting at home hounding with the same message. Do you feel like that's been part of success as well for you?
Yeah. And that's so funny. I think that's a recent lesson that I had to learn, because I didn't release music for 3 years and was, you know, not as much as I usually do, but was like sort of trying to talk to people about the project and getting people involved and stuff, which sometimes you have to do because, like you said, there's a lot of noise in music. And I hate to say it, but like money pushes stuff, you know, and like, yeah. And I had a mentor tell me that, you know, if you don't have the budget to support what you're trying to do at that level, then don't release. Like, wait till you have that budget, which I totally agree because you could possibly miss opportunities because you're not able to do something financially. But at the same time, especially because socials are so accessible and free up to a certain point, there's something to be said about not sitting at home and waiting and building a nest and just being active. And I really had to learn that because this person is someone I really respect and has amazing advice. And I 100% agree with what they said. But it comes to a point of like, life is expensive. So I like sometimes you need to release and be like, you know what? We don't have $10,000, but we have people who want to listen. We have organic growth and we have socials that we can use as much as we want and people are interested. And you know, now I learned that now because I'm completely independent, but when I'm talking with industry people and I can say, oh, we have this release and we're playing this show and we're doing this instead of like, oh, we're not doing anything right now. We're building, we're growing. It's like, that's fantastic. They love to see that, but it's like, okay, let me know when you're doing something. You know what I mean? So there's this wild balance, of like doing things and preparing for the next thing at the same time. I think it's important to be active and be present.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm hearing there is it's like it's about being deliberate, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's not just doing it to do it. Why are you doing it, right? You're getting out,
Exactly.
right? It's having again goals, right?
Yeah.
It's like knowing that this is if you do this, it's because you're working towards that.
Yeah. And you know, it's really important to me to have it be linked to again being genuine and doing something because you genuinely want to be there and not because you're trying to get something out of someone. And I think that creates the best music, in my opinion, and the best connections because it's real and you're not trying to be something you're not. And like, perfect example is the other night I was at the studio doing gang vocals for a friend's album, and there was no sort of personal gain there except for having a good time with friends. And
Yeah.
being there introduces you to all these people, not because like, oh, I'm going to do this because I'm going to meet this producer and see that artist that I've been trying to work with. It's just a good hang. And like, when you're genuine, people want to work with you.
Yeah, people can tell when you're out to get something, you know. It's like you show up and you're just there, and you know, it's less about being part of the song and more about like trying to talk to the other, you know. Like I feel like that's the other thing too, right? It's like it's just being, that, I mean, that just comes down to like just personality in general, like, you know, and that can be, and recognizing those moments. But but that's super cool that, you know, you can just like look at those moments and be like, yeah, you know what, I don't care. We're just gonna go down. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna lay down some vocals, and I believe in this person. Time. I believe in the project. You know, let's be a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, not to say that I haven't been caught in those situations where I want something so bad from this person because they're at a level that I would like, and I need to like catch myself and be like, okay, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And I think one thing that I've learned is that I've gained things through disingenuine connections and then been disappointed because I didn't want to get something that way. And it's like, I was talking to a partner about this, about, you know, turning down something just because you don't connect with the person or there's no sort of genuine anything being like reciprocated, and it'll block you from opportunities for sure. And maybe it's like something that'll keep me at my level, but at the same time, do you want success that way? Like, it's a big mind game.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's so many artists where they're just, you can hear about that, where it's like, look, I had this opportunity, but it wasn't right for me, so I didn't go. Yes, I really wanted to work with this person, but
just wasn't, when we got there, wasn't what we had expected it to be. So we're not going to force any of that. And again, I think that just kind of comes down to understanding what you want as a musician, as an artist, your goals, where you deliberate. And I feel like you're just, in many ways, as much as you're learning, you've been that way, maybe even subconsciously through what you've been doing as an artist. Because I mean, just looking at, I know people look at numbers, people are like, oh, don't look at numbers, but your numbers also speak for themselves. People listen to you, people follow you, people connect with you. And, Back to Being Friends isn't just another song where people can be like, frig, I know this girl, and I know this, and I know this I know this feeling. God, this song rips. What's what you're always out. You were just at Polaris as well. Like you're doing shows throughout the summer. What do you have on the go now with the single being out?
With the single out, we're going to be in Montreal on October 13th, which I'm very excited about. We're going to play
where your peeps are, where the dedicated are. Yeah.
I'm excited that we're going to be playing Petit Campus, and that's another great venue. And again, just coming back to roots, we rebuilt the band, which I'm really excited about. We have Jay on drums, who's part of this great band called Ragers, who are just incredible. And then we're going to play Unplugged North on October 22nd. Nice little acoustic show with my friend Jem. Honestly, just shows. We're going to head out to Trenton in October as well with my friend Geneviève Rassette. And I just want to get out there and play shows. Like, if I can be on tour most of the year, I'm a happy gal.
Great. Well, hey, I mean, you know what? This was awesome to finally connect. Like, we've been trying to do this for a little while now, and I feel like it's so great to talk with you. This is Just for Fun and Back to Being Friends are two songs that are coming up. They're both going to probably be on your EP coming out in the spring.
Maybe.
That's the idea. Maybe. Look at that. Okay. Tease. Either way, you've got an EP coming out in the spring of 2024. I always look for, again, I say this, I feel like all the time, I hate to put pressure on artists for new music, but I always look forward to whatever it is else that's coming from you. And Cinzia, it's no different from you and your squad. So really excited for what's to come, and thanks for chatting with me on the Release Day Series podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so glad we finally made this happen.
You can discover more podcast episodes as well as our limited video series on our website, www.releasedayseries.com. And if you'd like to support the show, we've added that option to the website as well. Send us $1, $3, $5, whatever you'd like. Any support helps. But most importantly, we appreciate you listening and sharing the podcast.